I'm really stoked to introduce our next speaker. Probably one of the coolest guys to come out of the MIT Media Lab in a long, long time. And if you're one of the 31, maybe 32 million people to see OK Go's music video for This Too Shall Pass, you've already seen some of his work. He was recently honored at the Ars Electronica Festival in Linz, Austria, and as a super cool conference, and W Hotel's Designer of the Future Award at Miami Design Basel. So please help me introducing Jamie Zigelbaum. I honestly don't even know what computational materials are. Raise your hand if you know what computational materials are. Jamie, it is your job to inform this town, this city, what computational materials are. We're super stoked to have you.
Can you hear me? Yes. All right. Do you mind if I sit? Okay, great. So I'm Jamie Zigelbaum, one half of Zigelbaum and Quelu, the unforgettable yet unpronounceable and ungoogleable name of our design studio. And I'm going to be speaking about computational materials, which, since we all know what this means, I'll just go on to the next slide. So computational materials, is one way to think about it is it's the kind of merger of information and objects, the digital and the physical together. And we're familiar with this from many, many things. Normal form of computers that we use, like this laptop, this is a synthesis of information and physical space and form, right? The way we look at it is we try and use the interesting parts of any material in the service of creating new experiences, new human experiences. So it doesn't just need to be utilitarian or conceptual. It can be a blend of these things depending on what we do. So our studio does art production, design work, and technology development. And so computational materials, I'll give you some examples, 3 examples from our research to explain a bit about how we understand this notion. So here is a project called pulp-based computing, where we put digital electronics into paper. So you're familiar with things like e-ink or LCD displays. This is kind of a synthesis of digital technology in paper that's really interesting. But there's all these properties of paper that we would love to be able to use in a digital context. You can fold a piece of paper up and put it in your pocket. You can scribble on it. You can erase it. You can tear it. You can use construction paper with tape and put it together on your wall. And what if you were able to add in really digital, natively digital functions to that as well? So here's a short video. Whoops, missed my play point. Here we go. So here you can silk screen a speaker onto some paper. So an output system. You can block print a bend sensor. And now you know how the paper is being folded. And then, the next part is putting in lights and microcontrollers to be able to do behavioral computational things with the input systems and the output systems. This is just kind of some research into how these systems might work. So that's one kind of computational material. Here's another one. This one's called Slurp. And this is a digital eyedropper. And the notion here is that our world, our spatial built environment, is becoming more and more saturated with digital artifacts, right? And you could think that in 50 years, every t-shirt in your closet might have its own URL. What you put on that site, probably won't be HTML5, but who knows? How are we going to interact with this space? If I want to know how many hours that light bulb's been on for, I could try, if that information was available, I could try Googling for it, but how do I do that? What if I just pointed at it, right? So can we use space in order to interact with information more easily? So here I'm going to send a file from one computer to another, and rather than SSHing in or something like that, I can just suck it off the screen and squirt it onto this screen. And the nice thing about this is it works with all different types of formats. I can grab a song as well. Right? So everyone on the internet thinks that's fake, right? Because I put Rick Astley into that video, but that's real. You can also interact with objects in the world. If you tag something like a sculpture, now this becomes digitally active. I can find out information about this bust of Nicholas Negroponte's head. Here's another project, Cornucopia. This is a food printer. So here we're applying digital systems and technologies and interfaces to a craft that's as old as we are, food production. This is a craft that we all participate in. We're all creative with food. We're all designers when it comes to the kitchen, right? We're all making things and inventing things. But we're not using any of the CAD tools that we've had for these, so why not start to apply them? This is a concept rendering. It's a 3D model. This does not exist. I'll be clear about that because people on the internet think it does. And the idea is that you could share recipes, and then this thing would you could go clip some thyme from your garden, put it in one cylinder, smush some tomatoes in another cylinder, put these into this box, and it prints your food for you. Here's a working version. This is a real one, and this prints with chocolate. So you can tell it what type of candy to make, how much nuts you like, share that with your friend, and then it'll rotate these cylinders and extrude chocolate down into this cup, then you can serve it. So that's the third example of a computational material in action, right? So now let me tell you about our work as Zigelbaum and Quaalude. So Timepiece Explorer, this is a design kind of product, to categorize it that way. Cartier asked us to do an interface for the Fast Company Most Creative People event in New York this year, and to browse through the videos of their fine timepieces. So this video should show you a bit about that. What we did is we made a gestural interface. Apologies for the text, but this is also online if you want to see it. And we wanted to make something that anybody could walk up to and use seamlessly right away without having to learn anything. So this sensor is a zero-touch sensor made by the Interface Ecology Lab at Texas A&M University, which are friends of ours. And it's a multi-touch sensor with quite high resolution, low latency, and you can just stick your hand inside this frame and it senses exactly how you're moving around. And we use that as the interface to browse through video. Here's a video. One of the nice things we did is that instead of having a direct mapping between your hand and some type of play controller, we abstracted the idea of playing or temporally multiplexed video, and now it's a stream flowing by. So if I want to make it go faster, I have to push it this way or push it that way, and the video now has inertia.
This is Gestalt. This is an interface that we.
So before I go to that one, so this was I guess I can show this. This was some of our earlier research, which maybe informs a bit about what we did in Timepiece Explorer. This is a much more expensive system, now being sold by Oblong Industries, where I worked for a while. But the notion of gesturally computing and moving through space, with your hands or digital space, that's kind of what we kind of spun that into the Timepiece Explorer work. But this system, I'm navigating through a library of videos, and in order to look at them, I'm just kind of walking through space by pinching, and then if I can throw space around. And let's get to some of the good stuff. I think it's happening right. Then I can use special gestures to organize the space by moving my hand defining the 3 axes of a cube. Now it makes a cube where I can make a line of images in any direction. And then that becomes more interesting when we start adding data to it. So now I can organize things by time. I can touch tags on the table in front of me and pick up, some keyword and add that to an axis in the space to then organize the data in that way. And then, all right, now here's some of our artwork. So this, no need to contextualize within the space of the rest of our work. It was just really, really fun. So it would be a total lie to take credit for all of that. That was produced by Sin Labs. We collaborated with them and made that together. It was about 40 people worked on that video, and it was tremendous fun. This piece, 640 by 480, is another piece that we've been showing a lot recently. And actually, I just came up from New York, where we're installing it with the Creators Project in Dumbo. And it's an interactive lighting installation that was commissioned through the W Hotels Designer of the Future Award from Design Miami, which is a wing of Art Basel, which is a big twice-a-year art fair, probably the biggest one in the world. And it's interactive light. I'll show you another video here. It's better than me explaining it. Well, actually, the text might be hard for you to read, so I'm going to narrate. Each of these little cubes, they're magnetic. You can put them up on a wall, and when you touch them, it cycles through the colors that are pre-programmed in. There's a color palette in each one. And then when you hold down on one, it'll start to pulse, and that allows you to clone the color from one into another. And it's sending a digital signal through your skin in order to do that. You become a part of the circuit directly. You can clone from one into multiple at the same time as well. Or hold a friend's hands with a friend, and then it'll go through the entire chain. And we also used the Apple remote, decoded that, and you can use that to interact with the system as well. There's two color palettes, a cool palette and a warm palette, and you can add motion with the remote as well. Blinking, faster, slower, smoother, sharper. And the idea here is that it's very conceptually motivated, this piece actually, is that we were thinking and talking about screens and the pervasion of screens as the representative media for all of our digital world, right? So much of the richness that we've created in the digital world, all of it is represented to us by pixels. And what are pixels? Pixels are these little non-spatial points of color, and we have no frame of reference for them in our body space, yet we have tremendous amount of cognitive activity devoted to crafting them through screens. I can't touch them, they're always behind glass, everything is out of reach from my hands. So much of our brain, of our gray matter, is structured around existing in three-dimensional space and navigating and manipulating things with our hands. If we could take that pixel out from that space and create it something physical that we can then use like a material like wood, how does that change the way computation can be embodied? And there's other people working on this in many ways, and I think it's something that will become more and more important in the next decades. So in this piece, we're trying to kind of access those notions. Here's a picture of it in Basel, Switzerland when we debuted it. This was in Barcelona, Istanbul. This is London at a show with Riflemaker Gallery. This is Doha, Qatar, Taipei, Corcoran Gallery in DC, Detroit, and Ars Electronica, where we just came back from. So that's most of the talk, and I'll leave with one other piece. So this is something we're working on right now, we haven't really shown yet, and it's not quite ready. It's a set of pendant lamps called Valo, we might rename it. But the idea here, and this goes along with the kind of half-finished idea that we've been working on, which is notions of representation with digital media. And I don't have this figured out, but if you think about the way art production works, so often you're trying to communicate something, right? And you're using media at hand in order to do that. You're sketching, you're representing something. But with digital media, you can then actually embody and present the phenomenon directly itself, rather than try and re-present it, right? And the thing that we're talking about here is entrainment behavior. So this is a biological system where organisms will synchronize their cycles with each other. Fireflies do it. You put two pendulums on a wall and they'll do it. They'll start to beat in the same way. And it's this very fundamental mathematical thing. But what does it mean? It gives rise to so many different complex behaviors. So these lamps each have their own internal respiratory system. The glass around them is liquid crystal, and it goes from dark to light and allows the light to pass through. And they respire, they kind of breathe by circling darkness. And those two little holes are a proximity sensor, so they can tell who's underneath them. So then they're trying to synchronize their cycles, but as you walk underneath, you're disrupting it. It sends these patterns through the whole space. You have maybe 200 of them hanging in this room. And through this kind of medium, we're hoping to allow you to interact with this biological system directly, rather than representing it. We're going to create it. And I don't know what that means, but it's something that we've been thinking about. And that's it. Thanks. So do I have time for some questions, or?
Yeah, we actually have a microphone set up right in the center if you have any questions. You have to walk to the...
There's a mic right there. Yeah.
How long did it take for you guys with whoever you were working with to create that video?
It lasted for about 4 months of development. Yeah. I think.
Can you hear me from just talking like this?
I can hear.
Yeah.
I'll repeat your question.
Okay. For the OK Go video, was that what? Okay, this might be a dumb question, but was that one shot or was it like multiple shots cut?
So she asked for the OK video if that was OK Go video if that was one shot or if it was multiple cuts. It took us about 100 takes to get through it 3 times, and not any one of those passes was perfect. So the final product is a stitch of those 3 passes. Yeah.
Can you just expand on how these ideas that you've come up with are so incredibly creative? I mean, I feel like that word is sufficient to express how unique the ideas are. Can you just talk a little bit about what you do to inspire yourself and your team in order to come up with such out-of-the-box, completely out there concepts and, of
Sure.
course, execute them?
So he said that my ideas are amazing, and that and that it's the best work he's ever seen, and he wants me to explain how I do it. So no, really, he said kind of talk a little bit about how he come up with ideas, if that's right. The creativity part of it. I mean, I don't know. I asked this question once. I asked this question once to this awesome Japanese media artist. I'm blanking on his name now, of course. And he said, "I just get drunk." So I'll use that answer. Yeah.
You are doing these really amazing artistic things, but I imagine that they require a lot of man hours and a lot of financial input. And is this sort of, would you say that your ability to do this without starving is an if I build it, they will come? Or like, how do you sort of approach these projects? I think play is so important to come up with creative things, but food is nice also. So how do you like strike that balance?
So she's asking about how we fund ourselves, and if we just kind of strike out to make things and hope that we'll get paid, or if we think about it differently. And yeah, I mean, we want to eat and eat well, and we think about that. We've been really lucky in that people have come to us and asked us to do really, really cool things for money, and we've done it, and we've been okay so far. We haven't had to do any marketing, and people are still asking us to do stuff, and that's going well. So we haven't had to worry about that too much, I guess. We're not a startup, and I love startups, they're great, but I don't really see ourselves that way. We're just trying to put ourselves in the coolest place, do the coolest stuff as much as possible, and so far that's been working.
I don't know, I forgot the name of it, digital pixel that you touch and transfer color and stuff.
Yep.
Is that more of an artistic concept, or are you thinking there's some practical?
Okay, good question. Yeah, so he's asking about 640 by 480, which is the interactive lighting installation that is in that picture, and asked if it was artistic or if it was, has a practical application as well. And these boundaries are kind of less and less important, I think, now, between art and design and technology and how these things separate or merge. And we don't really think about that a lot of the time, but it is interesting to think about as well. So we see it functioning in 3 ways. It's got a conceptual aspect, which was the driving force of the piece. It's got a functional aspect and a technical aspect. So the conceptual part is what I was explaining before about screens as representative media for so much of our lives. The functional part you can think of this as a new type of lighting system, right? Our lights now are overhead disembodied lights where you go find a switch. It'll take me 20 minutes to like turn these off, right? But this type of lighting system could function a little bit differently. Instead of, it's one way we talk about it as a luminous particulate media, right? So if I want light somewhere, what if I could just reach into a bucket, grab some light, and then go smear it on the wall? And then if I want to change the quality of that light, I can go touch it directly or gesture at it spatially, but directly as well, remotely to change it. And I think that's what we're getting at from the functional aspect. This could turn into a lighting system like that. And then the technical part, which you didn't ask about, but I'll tell you anyways, is that we, in order to make it do what we wanted to do, I think technology always serves the concept for us. We had to figure out how to get a human body to function within a digital circuit, as well as use a piece of glass as a capacitive antenna. And through that, we developed a few things that we're working on patenting now. Out of time?
One more question.
Oh, one more question. Yeah. Sorry, you go ahead. Yeah.
You alluded quite a bit to what you're anticipating in the future, and I'm curious about which aspects you're most excited about in how you envision upcoming decades.
Okay, interesting question. So what do I think about what most exciting things in the upcoming decades? One thing, which I've already alluded to, I think, is the physicality of computation in the future, and that computation is going to change from these one-person, one-machine interfaces and become an ecology of multiple machines and multiple people all working together in a very varied physical system, right? Where we're already seeing this. We've got a phone, I've got an iPad, I've got a computer. This is Wiesner's vision of ubiquitous computing, and it's happening. Computing is spreading into the entire built environment. We're going to have computers, and soon there will be no difference between what is a computer and what's not. Everything will be, right? That's exciting to me because it will allow us to function kind of how we're designed to function and not adapt so much of this to fit this, right? This will start to fit us more. And then what the resulting social changes will be from that are super interesting. I think we're seeing a lot of that now in these distributed political systems like Anonymous and oh, sorry, I have to.
No,
Yeah.
Continue.
Oh, okay, all right. And Occupy Wall Street, and that social media is allowing us to think on this higher level. A mind can form across multiple people, and that'll happen more and more, which is.
We'll allow for one more question, and because Jake, you were here until like midnight yesterday, setting up some crazy hovercraft spaceship Hampshire College thing. It's you, buddy. Ask your question.
In line kind of with that same question in terms of the lack of boundary that you see occurring between computational objects and also the biological influence you kind of talk about within your work. What ethically, how do you stand in terms of the interface between human systems and our bodies and the technologies that are developing, specifically how they interact and how you see that developing, but how do you feel in terms of design of technology that will be there?
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, so let me repeat it, and I might need some feedback from you. He said, considering the way that we're using kind of biology and technology and human systems kind of interchangeably, how ethically and in other terms do I think about the relationship between the human body and our technologies? Does that make sense? And that's actually a really apropos question for me, because something I think a lot about. And I don't think that Jamie is this thing here, right? I think Jamie actually extends into this thing and the phone in my pocket and all my friends and family's minds. So like you right now have a model of me in your head, right? There is a grouping of neural circuitry that represents me in your mind. That might be as much a part of me as it is you. And I also am being fed back from that representation. And especially with people that you're really close with, that becomes even more interesting. So that's a biological side. But then the idea of cognitive coprocessors. We have phones, we have computers. They are conducting cognition for us in the same way that our neural circuitry does or our physiology does. And it's not as important to me that that's made of silicon or biology, or that the interface is one that's more direct than the autonomous systems inside of our body. So I don't think that's the thing to focus on. I think really any technology, Andrew Feenberg, great philosopher from out west, writes in Questioning Technology that the technologies are not they're not neutral, but they are kind of ambivalent, right? So that we imbue technology with good and bad, but it doesn't mean that they are completely neutral. You know, you can make things that are bad and make things that are good, and it's really important for us to structure our technology development around social practice rather than just allowing, you know, one better screw design to replace another, but think about how that fits into the social matrix. And I guess that's it.